you must feel some vindication or feel happy that work is being done on your journalistic, products.
Absolutely, Samson. I think that the Fourth Estate project was set up at the foundation essentially to do this kind of work where, the interest of the public is served through journalistic works. And I think since the start of the project in 2021, a number of very important and impactful stories have been made. This is not the first. If you recall the SML, the whole SML thing, was started by the Fourth Estate and all of that. But this particular story, I should say the developments are quite fulfilling for a number of reasons, because we went through a lot of troubles. At the last minute when we were ready to bring it out, we had a judge who thought that it was right to issue a pre-publication injunction to essentially say, stop, don't publish what you intend to publish.
It was an ex parte injunction.
Yes,
it was sticking on your blind side.
Yes, on our blind side. And then we had to then ask ourselves, what can we do? Well, if a court says we shouldn't publish, we cannot publish, let's send our petition, first of all, to the OSP. And then when ORA was also set up, we said, let's send it there. And we thought we needed to do this because what we had discovered was so scandalous. I think that in the end, the amounts that would be involved perhaps would be more than what the Attorney General at this stage has even discovered. Because there are certain persons that, from our investigations, we knew that were deeply involved in this whole process. But of course, there are two people who are not named. We don't know who they are. But if it turns out not to be those people, for example, then it means there are a lot of people who must be brought to book on this particular matter. And what is also fulfilling for me, Samson, I should say that, but for the work we did, nobody would even suspect that there was anything happening at the National Service Authority. Nobody would have had a clue that something could be happening, so let's investigate. Because the thing was very well orchestrated in such a way that unless, you had people who were familiar with the situation willing to cooperate, there's no way, because this is a technology that has been developed. Dr. Bawumia is told, as a result of this technology, we are blocking ghost names. As a result of this technology, if you don't have a Ghana card, you cannot enroll as a national service person. And once you have a Ghana card as Samson Ayenini, your thumbprint and everything, it's not only the Ghana card that serves as evidence, but that once we take it, we actually match it with your records at NIA, because there is that agreement between NSA or NSS then and the NIA. So once we put in your card, if your card doesn't match with the records at NIA, it means that you cannot enroll. But we end up discovering that people were actually using just paper ID cards, National Fire Service ID card, work ID card, like my Joy FM ID card, to get enrolled. Which means that the system, as we were being told, is a robust system. People had their own ways of going behind it. And in the end, having thousands and thousands and thousands of people, enrolled. You take a university like UDS, and you have people giving different index number patterns. Every university has an index number pattern. So if you go to University of Ghana, they'll say, well, we use absolute figures. So 10, 11, 44, 99, or blah, blah, blah. But you would find somebody, maybe University of Ghana, and University of Ghana, for some strange reasons, was not part of the schools that they were using. It's UDS, Winneba, and UDS, the various campuses. So eventually UDS Tamale, for example, now comes to say that, look, the numbers you have put out there are certainly not UDS numbers, so please, the Fourth Estate, take our names out. And we say, no, it's not. The numbers are not created by us. This is what National Service say, you brought. And then you have a situation where one person, I've forgotten the name, is enrolled like 226 times, the same name, the same ID, the same course, completed the same year.
You found people who were how many years old?
80 years, 90 years, enrolled for national service. People who were, Kenyans. A Kenyan sitting somewhere, in his company, doing his work, doesn't know that his picture is being used to enroll for national service here in Ghana. You had ID cards that had a man's face and the name is a woman's face. You had ID card with a different date of birth, and then on the system, it's a different date of birth. But this was something that you certainly cannot have access to. And so when we started, I think they just brushed us aside. No, these people, what are they doing? They don't know what they are doing. Eventually, there were calls, can you come and have a conversation? Once we take you through our system, you realize that what you are doing is just junky work. You basically will not be wasting your time. And after we even went through the process, eventually the court injunction was over and we did the publication. We had some former executives of the NSA going around various media houses, blowing horns and basically, basically condemning the work we did as being nothing. And I'm surprised, and I'm sure today they'll be very, very ashamed of themselves, with the process so far and where we've gotten to. In fact, we had an occasion where somebody even wrote, for PR purposes, demanding retraction and apology. That what we had done is a bogus thing. We should immediately retract and render an unqualified apology. Quite strangely, that the letter was intended, we never received the letter up to today. Meanwhile, it was uttered by lawyers so essentially it was a PR thing. And as we said, it didn't start. It was not a one-year event. Quite clearly, as we indicated during the publication, 2017, 2018, from our analysis, the first year, we realized literally nothing happened. But beyond that, all the way till the worst year was 2020, 2022, 2023. And as the AG pointed out yesterday, that year alone, almost 350 million cedis was lost to ghost names. And we had regional directors who were complaining during management meetings, saying that, DG, I realized that in my region, every month before I authorize approvals, when I go onto the dashboard, I realize that thousands of people have already been pre-approved as service persons in my region. But per the mechanism we are operating, as a regional director, I'm the one who is supposed to give the final authorization after going through the validation to establish that this number of persons are within my region and are rendering national service. But before I come, pre-approvals have already been given. So I don't know what is happening. And in that meeting, what we are told is we will look into it. And nothing happens. It continued all the way until, these discoveries were made. And then they started to fidget with the system here and there. But by then, the damage had been caused, evidence had been picked, and so on. What for me is quite strange is something is that, if I'm not mistaken, the National Service Authority is still using the same metric app that allowed for this scandal to happen. And it's quite strange. It's really strange that the National Service Authority under a new leadership would decide that it is the same metric app that was used for this scandalous exercise, used for this vendor system. And for the benefit of our listeners, the vendor system was basically that, let's get some people to be suppliers of appliances to national service persons. So companies can come and register. So the national service persons can go for items on high purchase. And that was the scheme that was being used. So at the end of the month, deductions are made to certain, against certain names.
I've been speaking to them, and it does appear that the accusations and allegations against the individual persons, particularly Gifty Owari, about some 30 million for guarantee or pick a loan, may have been an issue of these high purchase processes, and that they did not actually do so. But of course, this matter will get to the courtroom. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Because as I understand, like teachers, like various associations and organizations, sometimes people come with products to say we want to give your people this, but we want you to guarantee that you will ensure that you deduct their salaries, or allowances to pay us. And they, as I understand, simply wrote to introduce this, is it bulk life company without more. And now they are being said that they have done one wrong or the other. Yeah, so Sule, did you know that this was the extent of money involved when you blew the whistle?
No, we thought it could even be more than what we are told it is now, the 500 million. Looking at the numbers that we established to be ghost names, we thought that it could be more, because if you are looking at the current service allowance of, I think, 715 Ghana cedis, for example, what it means is that if you have about 40,000 or 50,000, or let us just use the example of what happened in January, after the finance minister said, look, given what is happening, let us do a head count before we decide to release money for payment. And what did they discover? A difference of 81,000. So multiply 715 by 81,000. And what do you get? And that's for every month. And then we are talking about years. So 5, 6, 7 years. So in our estimation, it was going to be more. And like I said from the beginning, I believe that in the end, the Attorney General may discover that the amount of money that may have been lost to the ghost name scandal will be more than the 548 that they have established now. So for me, it's quite gratifying. My desire, or our desire, is not to put people in trouble, but to protect the public purse. And I think that as a country that wants to reset, certainly these things must happen. If you look at the 81,000 difference, for example, we're going to be losing about 57 million cedis every month, but for the headcount. And as I said, if we hadn't done this, I don't think that the government would have suspected that there could be anything wrong with national service or any, bloating of numbers at national service. And government would have been dishing out some 57 million cedis every month.
Okay. This came rather fast, as in results for you, right? Because you have a number of these investigations that you have been doing at the Fourth Estate, but there's not sufficient attention to them. Manasseh, who has been the first editor-in-chief of the Fourth Estate, his campaign against the obnoxious and clearly criminal Zoom Lion contracts,
the presidency
has just after how many years? Almost how many years? So many years
he's
now.
Been doing this for
just got the results, right?
Yes, I think. Well, on the Manasseh resilience, persistence, and consistency, and the results that has happened, I think I can only attribute that to the change in leadership of our country. When we have a new leader who has decided to listen for once and to look into the matter, and I think that is really.
So you are positive about expecting results?
Well, every new government tend to act correctly. I think when the Akufo-Addo government took over, the very first 6 months or so were all positive. That's when Dr. Bawumia, for example, talked about the CD having been, the dollar having been arrested, the keys handed over to IGP, and so on and so forth. And so I think that the experience has been, the beginning of every government tends to be so positive. They want to right the wrongs that they inherit. Okay. We can only look forward to what will happen in the coming years. But let me, on that basis, say that we are also witnessing a lot of the bad deals that happened continuing to happen in a number of agencies. And these are based on some of the investigations that we are doing. And we are wondering why the current leadership would see this and would allow it to continue. Because in some instances, we've seen things that were being done all the way to the end of 2024 haven't continued into the first quarter of 2025. And we would say these are so obvious that the new leadership cannot say that they haven't seen this. and I don't want to mention names of institutions, but eventually I think that when we begin to do the publications, people would wonder why the new authorities or new heads of certain institutions would allow certain corrupt deals to continue. We would only want to pray and hope that President Mahama and this government would act not just on this one, but some of the things. For example, the free Wi-Fi contract is another scandalous thing where we're paying monies, millions of cedis every month to certain companies and certain institutions, supposedly for the delivery of Wi-Fi services to our secondary schools, when these things were non-existent.
Yes, but these, as we understand, because they are matters for the court, remain allegations for now.
Yes.
Until they are proven.
Yes.
Okay.
But I'm saying that it is important for the AG to look into all that. I don't think that the free Wi-Fi story, for example, is in court. It is something that can be looked into, and if the evidence is worthy enough, the people behind it should be brought to book.
Okay.